Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon to you, and welcome to Lorena's Labyrinth again. Today, we're going to be talking about one of my favourite crystals, which is Seraphinite. Now, if you watched the yarning video this week, you will know this is not my first attempt to do this particular video. I started doing it quite some time ago, putting aside the transcript, and I delayed it because I actually found some online and I wanted to re-experience Seraphinite, if you like, before I actually put the video up from a metaphysical perspective, of course, because that's what I'm into, guys. Of course, I welcome people who are not into the same stuff as I am, and by that I'm talking about people that are geologists or gemologists or whatever, to contribute to the video and the discussion, their experiences and their understandings as part of helping us as buyers to get value for money, if you like. But anyway, what happened was, oh dear, I held off on it for such a long time, and then I recorded it the other day. I had completed the actual video, and then when I went and checked it, it turned out that my microphone wasn't working, so I'm redoing it again today. So I will try and brush over as quickly as I can, and just in the first instance, thank everybody, because I like to extend gratitude to those people that visit the channel, whether or not they subscribe. I mean, obviously, I appreciate if they do subscribe, and certainly I appreciate feedback, comments, and, if they like the video, or even to turn around and say where they think I could have improved on the delivery. I'm very open to all the feedback. I'm not one of these that gets hung up and pretentious and thinks I know everything. There's always more for all of us to learn and grow from, and I definitely am one of those. Now, the other thing, if you are a newbie to the channel, you might not be aware, but you'll soon find out, I will quite often distract myself. I do transcripts, but I end up going down what we call the rabbit warren, and I deviate from the script. So what I do is, in case the content is boring for you, or it's not of interest to you, or you just want to move on to something that's more important to you, I actually put chapters in the description so that you can jump to those areas of interest. So just remember that. And I'm not going to be at all offended if you don't watch the entire video, because my videos can be very long. And excuse me as I swallow, I recognize that time is of a premium for many of us, and to sit there through my droning Australian accent might be a little bit much to ask, and I get that. I don't actually like listening to my voice recordings myself. It's funny that the way we hear ourselves through our own ear hole is completely different to the way we hear ourselves when we have a recording. But anyway, without further ado, let's jump straight in, because I really want to talk to you about Seraphinite today. I absolutely love this stuff. Now, the first thing I want to acknowledge with this particular photograph is that I sourced it off a website called Mindat. And I go to Mindat quite a lot because it's got a lot of the geological information that I feel is important for us to know as part of being a buyer. I'm not a geo. It can be too complex for me. I actually find the whole conversation about how is it made up to be a little bit on the dull side. I'm more interested in what sits in my hand, basically, and how it makes me feel. But anyway, when you take a look at this particular photograph, this to me is an indicator that photographs do not do justice to the actual crystal, okay? Because realistically, I would expect in real life, if I had this crystal in my hand, that I would see the green of Seraphinite as being a beautiful dark forest type green, because that's what I'm used to looking at with it. And then that these patterns of white, this feathering, that they would actually be quite a contrast to the deep dark green of the Seraphinite. Now, I'm not going to talk about the mineral makeup of it at this point in time. Just suffice to say, this is a common, it's a very good specimen, by the way, especially if you had the genuine colours of it. But this is kind of like my first experience. It looks like the first crystals that I found in my friend's retail business. Excuse me while I cough. Because while the really good specimens have a full circle of this white, that seems to be more rare, is where I'm going. But anyway, let's get into it. So I'll be quite honest and say, look, sometimes I can work out why a specific crystal is suited to a particular star sign. And in this particular instance, I have no idea how they reach these conclusions, but either way, it's supposed to be recommended for people that are born under the sun sign of Sagittarius. Now, at the same time, don't let that limit you at all from using Seraphinite if you can afford a piece as part of your collection. Because, as with anything, if we feel that we can benefit from the attributes of a crystal, then that's the one for us. And part of it also, I guess, in the past, although I'm not a Sagittarius, I'm actually a cusp. So I do have fire and earth in my cusp, and then I've got water and air in the extended horoscope. I can't remember what it's called at the moment. Other signs, my moon sign, and that kind of thing. But anyway, getting back to this, if you feel drawn to a crystal that you need its healing properties, it doesn't matter what your star sign is. For myself, I bought a couple of tumbles many years ago because I don't know that I was so much drawn to have it as part of my metaphysical collection for healing benefits, but actually because it's a very stunning crystal. I think I just fell in love with it because I love crystals. So let's do a little bit of an overview here of the metaphysical properties, because this is certainly what most of the people that are watching this video will be looking for. But before I do, I want to acknowledge what we've got here, this sphere. You can see with the white parts of it, it's just stunning. You're starting to see more of the curves there. You don't see the fullness of the circles, but hopefully in your mind's eye you can imagine that this green, the forest green contrasted against the white, would look utterly amazing. But from a sort of metaphysical, let's jump into that metaphysical overview. It is said to be a crystal that offers spiritual expansion and spiritual enlightenment. Now, I would say that I've probably got these around the wrong way as far as the properties go, because my understanding historically has been that it's primarily linked with connecting a person to their higher self and to the angelic realm, and not just the angelic realm, because we're talking about, with this depth of the forest green, you've also got, when we talk celestial, we're talking about angels. When we're talking about nature sprites, those people from Ireland who still believe in their cultural traditions and that, they're going to be talking the fairy realm. But at the same time, it's said to connect a person to their spirit guides and to their spirit guardians. So other properties are the capacity to enhance your psychic gifts, and it does this through connecting, clearing, balancing, aligning the aura across the layers and the chakras. And also, one of the other benefits, which I wasn't aware of until I was doing the research here, is it's said to assist and support those people that have been born with, say, phobias or fears that are embedded in them, and they don't know where those fears came from. Well, the belief is that quite often these are related to a past life experience, and it's recalled. If I can speak, they remember it in their DNA. It's a cellular memory that they bring into this life, and that's where past life healing becomes important to people on their spiritual journey. So anyway, where I'm going with this is Seraphinite is apparently associated with being able to bring the memory, the originating memory, the past life incident, to the surface, to consciousness, for healing and clearing, so that you can shift on from it in this life. Now, examples of when you would do this kind of thing is, let's say you had an inexplicable, if I can speak, goodness me, stumbling over my tongue, inexplicable fear of heights, perhaps, and you can't put your finger on the pulse of why you're frightened of heights in this life. It could be a fear of blood, where you faint at the sight of blood. It could be anything like that. And when you've got no valid reason in the conscious memory as to why you hold these fears, you can't put it down to anything, then you can actually do a past life meditation and allow that memory to surface. You would hold your Seraphinite while you're doing that. Now, when it comes to the mineral information, look, my understanding is, as I say, I want to put that disclaimer up there, I am absolutely not a geologist. This is not my area of expertise. But I did manage to obviously source a really nice piece from the Ukraine. And so I've had a conversation with my supplier over there, and he's given me a bit of extra information. I wasn't aware that you can actually get Seraphinite that is so dark in its green colour that it appears to be black. So anyway, it's part of the clinical ore family, whatever that means, Geos. Feel free to add your comments. My Ukraine supplier has said that when it comes to the mineral hardness, which is the MOS, if that's how you pronounce it, Seraphinite is usually around 2.5. So you're looking at a crystal that's actually very soft, okay? Now, just a little tidbit here about where it got its name from, which I find fascinating as well, is it was originally found, certainly for the world's information, by a gentleman called Nikolai Koksharov, if I've pronounced that correctly, and he named it because he believed that the white striations, if that's what you call it, that go throughout the Seraphinite, he likened them to the angelic feathers, and so he named it Seraphinite because he believed it reminded him of the seraphim angels, which is quite fascinating, I think. So just bear in mind, we are talking about a crystal that is only sourced in one part of the world, Russia. Okay, I think it's actually sourced in Siberia, which is part of Russia. And as I said, my supplier is in the Ukraine, which is not Russia. We wouldn't want to call it Russia at this point in time, but certainly very close. So anyway, bearing this stuff in mind, let's move on. So from a buying tip perspective, the first thing to understand is that when a crystal is rare, there is this supply and demand element to buying, and a rare crystal is going to be more expensive than the mainstream. That's the usual process. Then the other thing is how many times a crystal has been handled before it makes to you. So for instance, I got my crystal at a very good price. I'm going to show you this in a minute. But it had probably just gone direct from the prospector that dug it out the ground in Russia to my Ukrainian contact. And then from my Ukrainian contact, it's come through to me. Now, if I was selling my piece, I would obviously mark it up, okay? Now, because it's so rare and hard to come by, the person that buys it from me might actually be another retailer, and they will mark it up yet again. So this is the thing. If you know where the crystal is located, then you know to try and get a local supplier. So anyway, that's the first buying tip. The second buying tip, which is really important, and I can speak directly to this because I spent hours online trying to find my little piece that I ended up buying. It is hugely expensive. It can, if you find a good price, I don't think it's easy to, in fact, I don't think there's any fakes at all out there on the market of Seraphinite. What you have is potentially some dishonest marketing, okay? And when I say dishonest marketing, it's because you need to know, the photographers zoom in very close so they can actually make a piece look quite large. When it's not large, it can be a very small piece that you're looking at. So when you're buying, you want to know how tall it is and you want to know how wide it is. That's the first thing if you're looking at the big chunks like the central image here and the image on the right. You also want to know the same information for the tumble. But what I found is, let's talk about the image on the right here. I don't have all the photos of this, but what I found is that a lot of these images that look like this one in the middle, they're actually sold as slices, and those slices of Seraphinite are probably about 0.5 centimetre thick, which is not thick at all. And we're talking about, so this is buyer beware stuff, This is a stunning, I'm talking to the right image, a stunning piece of Seraphinite. Those circular formations, and it's got 3 of them, makes it very attractive to buyers. Everybody seems to go for this. Now, if it had, and it probably does, but the photo's not going to give it justice, if it's got those stunning white circles within, and then it's got the really deep green associated with it, that is like a buyer's heaven, okay? We all want a piece of that. I would prefer a chunk of it. I don't think I could buy a slice, just so that you know. And the slicing stuff really disturbs me. I do understand that the people that make the product, I have seen many of them, I can't remember their name, maybe they're called lapidarists, where they will get a new stone and they'll cut a slice of it because they actually want to see which way the veins work and that kind of stuff before they actually turn it into a tumble stone or whatever. So that's not unusual. What I find concerning with the crystal like Seraphinite being cut into slices and sold as slices, that's simply a way of them maximizing their profit. But if you buy that, let's say you bought this particular image on the right, you can see straight away that there's a fracture running through the center of it with a white line. So you will know if you've bought a slice, and because it's a soft crystal, the slightest knock or mistreatment of this crystal is actually going to make it crack across that fracture. So you'll end up with 2 bits of Seraphinite. Not the end of the world, really, but if you were hoping to retain that nice look, it's not going to last very long, I wouldn't think. So you want to get a photo of the width is where I'm going. You want to know if you're buying a slice, or if you're actually buying what do they call it? I think it's called single facet polished or whatever, where it's rough on the back and polished on the front. Those are the kind of things that you want to know. Now, the other thing too is if you're buying online, not only do you, because these platforms are just dreadful when it comes to freight, okay? You want to be looking at the currency. What does it convert to? You know, if they're selling it, for example, US dollars, which everything is at the moment, and then we convert that into Australian dollars, it just really pushes the price up for the Australians. Then you add the freight to that to assess, are you still getting a good deal? You know what I mean? And is that deal affordable by the time you add freight? It might not be. It might actually push it out of your budget range once you do things like that. What else can I say? You would check the reviews from the supplier too. And if you've got questions, if it's not clear, you can actually contact the sellers and say, look, is this a slice? Or can I have a photo of it from the side and a photo of it from the back, please? So just to be clear, I don't know that these photos do justice to what I've got here. This is my piece that came in the post. Well, in fact, it's more than my piece. You can see the image on the right that I have what we call the Seraphinite in the rough. It's single facet polished on one side. I've got some tumbled stones there, and you get to see half of a pendant that I've got, which is a mix of greenstone from New Zealand and the Seraphinite. Anyway, also the other thing actually that you see here too is how I cleanse my crystals. I shove them on selenite, whatever. I prefer to do that. It is less time consuming than doing incense and all the other things that we can be doing to cleanse and clear. I rely on my selenite quite a lot, so I've got a number of different pieces of it. But anyway, talking about the Seraphinite, when I was doing my Googling and research and trying to find a piece that was affordable, I actually saw this one. Now, I saw also, it had the cruddy brown marks on it. I could see that it was not in my mind, through the photographs. It didn't look like the best quality specimen. Not only that, it actually looked to be a very pale green. And of course, when you look at my other Seraphinite, and of course it doesn't show the green really well either, but you can see that they're a very dark forest green, those tumble stones, and the feathering is not really the feathering that we've seen on the other crystals. It's kind of like little darts of white, shall we say, that is interspersed between the green. So speculating, my little tumbles have probably come from the outside edge of a Seraphinite rock, okay? I always used to call it Seraphinite, by the way. I don't know if it's potato or whatever, but I learned more recently that it's not Seraphinite, it's Seraphinite, I was told. So I'll try and remember to do that. But anyway, going back to this, I was thinking, it's very pale green. It's obviously so cheap because it really was cheap actually for Seraphinite. Maybe it's that cheap because it's just really poor quality. We can see the brown, it's very light green, etc., etc. So I just waited for it to arrive. Now, what I can tell you is, it is a stunning piece. This is why I say I don't think the photo will do this justice. When it is in my hand, it is actually stunning. It is probably the best piece of Seraphinite that I've ever seen, despite the fact that it's got the brown in it. Okay, and this is because on the one side where you see the brown, that actually looks chocolate, okay? That's not the Seraphinite. When it's in my hand and in real life, it looks like some really yummy, delectable chocolate, okay? That's the first thing. You can also see in that right-hand image there that we actually have some very perfectly formed scalloping there with the green. That's what I would consider to be the highest quality in my mind before I bought this piece. Okay, I've had a change of heart, I think. And that is because when we turn over the back, which is the image that you can see on the left, that will not be doing justice to the fact that the reason why my crystal looks light green in a photograph is because of the layer upon layer upon layer of this beautiful white circles, shall we say, the scalloping. And not only that, I hope you didn't hear that alarm going by, not only is it layer upon layer of the scalloping of the white, it's actually shiny, metallic. It looks like the inside of an abalone shell or whatever. It's just stunning, okay? So the other thing is that you can see here that I've put a ruler up. So you can see that my piece in the image on the right is actually, about 10 centimetres long and probably about 2 centimetres across the broadest part. And that gives you an indication. Now, as for weight, I actually can't remember what weight it was, but these are the other things that are going to give you an idea when you're buying Seraphinite or any crystal. Know the dimensions, know the weight. If you don't know, because quite often they'll put it up in ounces, you can do a converter. There's usually a Google one where you can go to, convert ounces to grams or whatever. And then there's another form of weight, carats, right? You can actually do a Google as well and convert carats over to, what are they called? Grams, stuff like that, not millimeters. Well, you would do millimeters if you're measuring the length, but if you're doing the weight, you do the conversion over to grams from carats or from ounces. Okay, so just a couple of tips there. So I've had to stop and start, and sometimes this happens when I'm recording videos because, hello, we've all got a life and we've all got things that we have to address at different times that come up at unexpected times. So this is one of them, and I'm hoping it's not going to interrupt my voice tone too much for you guys that are doing the listening. Anyway, when we talk about the spiritual metaphysical benefits of Seraphinite, we're talking about a crystal that is said to be very high energy, very high vibrational, and that may have capacity to be actually quite overpowering to people if they're not used to what energy feels like. But the attributes of it are said to clear the aura and the mind. I'm going to refer to my notes here, that there become drastic life changes for the positive for those people that are ready. When we have these really big changes and we're aligned with divine will, it's going to take us down a different pathway that's generally quite positive. Well, as far as I'm concerned, always positive. Anyway, it's said to give you greater insight and awareness. It unlocks this processing potential and it shows you your capabilities. It's said to heighten your intuition and your intellect, help you to become more aware of the environment that you live in, because energy can change within the environment. And this is why you might find, obviously, changes in hobbies and tastes and personal preferences. Things that you were interested in before, you may let go of. You may no longer have the interest for them. It pushes a person into a space of accelerated growth. But I just want to go back to energy in the environment and how that can be very changeable and very flexible, and draw your attention to, as a reminder to what happened with the COVID lockdowns. And this is why I recall that I was actually doing services at the time, but a prime example was I had done a few months earlier a prediction, well, maybe even longer than that, for somebody, which showed them travelling to Africa. However, about 4 months later, when nothing was happening, there was a few delays with it anyway, I said, look, the cards are showing me you're still going there for work, but there are delays and I can't see what the delays are. Well, the delays were actually COVID lockdowns. So putting that into perspective, that, by the way, that prediction has come true. It's still got a lot of delays with it because the area in Africa the person is going to keeps having let's say instability in the region, which is no surprise. But moving back onto Seraphinite, it strengthens this connection. Not only a lot of people don't realize. You may do, depending on how far in your journey. We have what is called a higher self aspect and a lower self aspect, and most of us go around our day-to-day life actually feeling a little bit disconnected from it, but it's once we've strengthened that connection to our higher self aspect, this is really the expansive part of bringing our bringing the truth of who and what we are into our daily living, being authentic with what we are and feeling connected to the divine, which that can be the creator, that can be the angels. It's basically putting your talk into practice, okay? What else? Seraphinite can act as a protector of you upon your journey. It can serve as a reminder to you of the strength that you contain within yourself. Life is full of change, let's be real. It's an ongoing cycle. And as we ease into change, change becomes easier to do when we put total trust in the higher self aspect that we're following our divine guidance, especially when it comes to decision making. And the clear message is that the universe will reward those people who follow their divine inspiration and guidance. So I did say that it acts as a protector, so you can use it as a talisman, if you like, when you're entering into a new phase, new beginnings, and these new beginnings generally have endless opportunities associated with them. What else can I say? I think I've covered all the vital spiritual metaphysical stuff here, so I'll jump into the physical attributes. So, of course, when we talk about physical attributes, I must put this disclaimer up all the time, I think, to remind people that these are the attributes. They've got no evidence base attached to them. It can be people's experiences. I can't say that it's my experience working with Seraphinite. This is just information that I've come across, and you would never, under any circumstances, disengage from your medical treating professionals and rely upon the crystals in themselves to heal whatever physical ailment that you've got. What the recommendation would normally be is that if you've got any of these symptoms or conditions, that you actually work with the crystal. And in this instance, we're talking about Seraphinite. When you work with a crystal, you could be wearing it, you could be meditating with it, you could be putting it under your pillow and sleeping with it, and allowing the energy of the crystal to support you through your healing journey of recovery. And if it's protection against an illness, then you would probably keep it in your environment as well. If you're particularly ill, let's say theoretically, okay, if somebody's got an immune condition or an autoimmune condition, then they could either wear the crystal, they wouldn't stop taking their medication if they're on medication, and they could place it in their environment. So just a couple of tips there. I'm not going through all of them because you can see them here. So when we talk about the emotional and psychological benefits of Seraphinite, you can see it's got a range of them again here as well. And the really strong emotions, like guilt can be almost crippling sometimes. If you've got resentment, anger, unforgiveness, that kind of thing, can actually help, or the attributes are said to help a person to overcome these. It's supposed to also be beneficial with the anxiety and stress conditions, and that includes the anxiety depressive type disorders and the phobias. And if a person's got post-traumatic stress disorder, now a lot of people don't actually have PTSD as a diagnosis, but PTSD, for your information, is where there has been I'm minimizing this, I apologize to people that have got it or have been through it, but just to make it clear that most people will be able to benefit from it at this point in time. PTSD can be as simple as having been in an environment and being victimized. It can be workplace bullying and mobbing. There becomes a betrayal of trust and faith in the people around them. And I mean, the more significant the betrayals, the greater the symptoms of the PTSD, basically. So if you've been in a simple situation of workplace mobbing and you're trying to overcome because that really undermines the self-esteem, and people that have been through it, they tend to question how other people can be so cruel, So anyway, where I'm going, you could definitely use it and wear it for that, or meditate with it. If people have got fears, such as the phobias, the nightmares, and the night terrors. Certainly it's recommended for that. And when we work with these deep, heavy feelings, the painful feelings, when we release them and send healing to them, obviously we do increase the joy and happiness that we can have in our lives. But I would say, as far as my list goes here, probably mental clarity would come before the joy and the happiness, because when we're letting go of these really deep feelings of pain and suffering, we process them. We start to put it into perspective and realize that any victimization that we may have been through is not something that we've earned or deserved. There wasn't something wrong with us. It simply is, people are what they are. They're on different parts of their journey, and just processing those emotions and finding a sense of inner peace within it. And then that leads to, once we've got peace with the pain, then we're open to experiencing more joy and happiness. I hope that makes sense to you. So from a chakra perspective, it's said to create a link between the heart and the crown chakras, which definitely leads to peace. But I actually believe that it goes through all of the chakras and activates the heart and the crown. It gets those in sync, so we see the best in situations, and even the painful situations, we see the positives. We can find the positives within them. And once we find those positives, we actually expand the heart chakra as well. So it's said to link the heart and the crown, but I also believe that it assists with all of them. And I think there is another one that's not mentioned on a lot of the places that I've seen when I was doing my research, which is that it also activates what we call the rainbow chakra, which is about a foot above your head. And that is the one that connects us to the celestial realm. So I believe, that's just my belief, I'm interested in your thoughts. I believe it activates your rainbow chakra, which is also called the celestial chakra. Now, when it comes to using Seraphinite, I've got to be honest, it's so expensive, and because it's so soft, I'm not sure that I actually would wear it as a jewellery item, but you do find it as a jewellery item, usually as a pendant. I haven't actually seen any rings made of Seraphinite, but they are out there, and I would be too worried about breaking it, and I would be worried even about putting a tumblestone into my bra, because I have historically, I don't know about you guys, taken my bra off to have a shower and forgotten that I had a tumblestone in there. It just hits the bathroom tiles. So there's a real risk of it breaking if that's the case. I think it's probably far better to meditate with them. Obviously, it's a very powerful crystal, so you don't need a big piece anyway. You could use it with your... if you're into crystal gridding and doing crystal healing, you could certainly use it that way. With my new piece that I've shown you, I will likely incorporate that into my metaphysical services when I'm doing tarot readings or psychic consults or whatever. It's likely that I will actually use that. And I tend to hold them, just so you know. I hold them, or I put them to the side when I'm not shuffling cards or whatever. So that would be how I would use my piece of Seraphinite. And when I'm not working with it, I will have it sitting in my environment, which is what I'm doing with it now. Now, I don't actually have my Seraphinite in my crystal bowl. I'll call it a bowl as opposed to a ball, because it's not a ball. I have a dish where sometimes I might turn around and ask my clients to put their hand in and pull a crystal. If I'm doing online readings, I will ask for my hand to be guided to the right crystal to give them a message based on the crystal that I pull out. So if it happened to be Seraphinite, I would be saying, from a general perspective, that this is now time for them to open up to the divine guidance, to be able to connect to their higher self, to strengthen that connection. And I mean, all messages are contextual, okay? So sometimes it might be a case of, if I was to pull out Seraphinite, I'd be saying to the client, are you questioning whether or not you're following your divine path? Are you aware of your divine path? Because this one, depending on the circumstances, might be reaffirming to the person, yes, you are on track, you're on your path, keep going the way you're going. You know what I mean? Things like that. So it's all contextual. If a person is not aware or has not been aware of the divine plan, it might be a case of saying to them, look, you have a divine plan, and everything that's happening for you right now is serving a purpose. It's part of the plan, or whatever suffering that you're going through, connect to your higher self so that we can help you heal and work through and navigate these conflicts in your life. Now, when it comes to caring for Seraphinite, I think it's very important to remember this bit, because I actually forgot it until I was recording my video the first time around. Before I'm re-recording it now, I fixed it since then. Is that Seraphinite is considered to be a crystal that absorbs energy. Okay, it absorbs anything negative that might be in the atmosphere. So you've got to regularly cleanse it. If you're working with it, as I am, then I will need to make sure that I put it up and cleanse it in between uses. There is a risk. I don't know if it would happen with Seraphinite, and I wouldn't want to try it, but I have actually had other crystals that when they get overworked, and if I forget to cleanse them, or if I have a client that's got a lot of energy, negative energy around them, where the crystals have actually shattered when they left. And I wouldn't want to test my Seraphinite to see if it actually breaks. Okay, so the bottom line is you need to be very mindful and actually cleanse it on a regular basis. So in between uses, I now put mine on a selenite disc, which is a polished selenite, because the other thing is, Seraphinite is very soft, okay, so it scratches very easily if you don't look after it. And I have now realised that the selenite brick that I was putting my Seraphinite on actually is too harsh for it, because selenite's a lot harder. So although I can still use selenite, I need to actually have the polished stuff to lay it on for cleansing and clearing. If you don't have selenite, of course, you can do your incense smudging and that kind of stuff. Some people are attracted to using sound for healing. I've got a video on how to sound for healing, sound for cleansing as well. I've got a video that incorporates a lot of the means that you can use to clear your crystals. And I wouldn't be putting Seraphinite out in the sun. Once again, this is because I'm Australian. We have a very harsh sunlight that it can actually bleach the colour from the crystals. And as I say, I wouldn't be prepared to experiment with this with Seraphinite, simply because of the cost, actually. And what was I going to say? So bearing that in mind, you wouldn't even put it on your windowsill, okay? Or if you were going to put it on your windowsill, you wouldn't put it there for very long. You could, if you were into things like the full moon, you could probably do that. I've got to admit that I am not even comfortable at the thought of putting my Seraphinite out in a pot plant. I don't know why, it just feels so special to me. I just don't think that would be treating it well, although it has obviously come from the ground in the first place. If you're into visualization and doing energy healing, you can do that. You can send clearing, cleansing, purifying energy to the crystal. Okay, I think that's probably about it. So I'm going to call it to a close now for today, and just thank you for being part of my journey. Okay, this video is long. Sorry about that. It happens. But anyway, I'm going to get this up because I'm running late. I want to have this up today for you guys so that I'm on schedule. But in the meantime, I'm just going to say thank you very much for being part of my journey. Love you, leave you. Blessed day. Blessings to you all week. Catch you on the next video. Bye-bye for now.